Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're recording the presentation today and we'll make it available to you in the next few days. There are a lot of other recordings on our YouTube channel, so remember to hit subscribe to receive notifications when we publish new content. So anybody that doesn't know EBS, we've been an experienced technology partner for over 43 years. We specialise in the deployment of Sage Business Management and Microsoft solutions, managed services, and secure on-premises and cloud-based infrastructure. My name is Darren Tolley, and I'm one of the account managers here at EBS. Today, we're joined by our partner, CyberSmart. CyberSmart predominantly specialise in helping companies like yourselves achieve Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus accreditation. This morning, Adam and Stephen will take us through a real-life case of a cybercrime committed by an insider and how this could be avoided. If you do have any questions, please put them in the chat, or there will be an opportunity at the end of this session to post them there. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Adam. Morning, Adam.
Morning. Thank you, Darren. Thank you. So my name's Adam Pilton. I'm a senior cybersecurity consultant working at CyberSmart. Now, my background, as you've probably gathered, is in law enforcement. I worked for the police for 15 years as a police officer. My last role was working in the cybercrime team as a detective sergeant leading that team, which involved investigating cybercrime, but also looking at digital methods and techniques to locate people and evidence for more traditional crimes, so non-technical crimes. So today, I'm going to be speaking to you about an investigation that I conducted into an insider attack. I'm also going to be looking at a survey that CyberSmart conducted with Census-wide, where we spoke to 1,000 UK SMEs, and we asked decision makers, business leaders, how the cost of living crisis is impacting them. So the incident, the investigation. So to start off, I received an email, I was advised an email had been received by the entire company from the CEO. Now, the email was derogatory about an individual member of staff. And when I say derogatory, it was particularly ferocious against one individual. The message itself was signed off with the phrase, "Your friendly CEO," which isn't a phrase that the CEO himself used. And the CEO found that they were now locked out of their account. So the outsourced IT company had commenced an investigation, and they advised me that they found that the an admin account had reset the CEO's password, and that admin account was accessed via the O2 cellular network, so it used an O2 IP address. And someone in the company had also recovered a historic email which used the phrase "your friendly IT manager," and this email had been sent by the now ex-IT manager. So at this point, I have three suspects: the ex-IT manager, the CEO, and the current outsourced IT. And these are all suspects because these are the only people that have admin access, either now or historically. So my investigation. I start my investigation by focusing on the ex-IT manager. When I spoke to the CEO about the ex-IT manager, he informed me that he'd left 2 months prior to this incident happening. And although he'd left of his own choice, it was a case of jump or be pushed. There've been a number of incidents which led to distrust in the IT manager. I looked at the ex-IT manager's telephone to start with, obtained his telephone number from the company, and identified that the phone number was still in use, it was still live. It was registered to the ex-IT manager at his home address, and most importantly, I could see that phone number was using the O2 network. I then decided to look a little deeper into how the ex-IT manager used his internet access and e-commerce sites. So I looked at the sites that he had, or the accounts that he had legitimate access to whilst working for the company. And I could see that he was placing a number of orders on e-commerce sites. Lots of these orders related to items that were very high in value. And when I spoke to the company and asked them what these orders are about, they had no idea. They weren't aware that he'd ordered a GPU in excess of £1,000. And when I told them that, there was no legitimate reason for him to be ordering that item and others on the list. And as I looked a little deeper into these orders, I could see that he was logging in at all times of day and night. And also, interestingly, he wasn't just logging in from the office IP address, from the office network, he was logging in from home. I could see his home IP address. But again, I could see he was using O2 IP addresses, using the cellular network. But there was one order that stood out to me, and this order was delivered on a Saturday. Well, the offices are completely shut on a Saturday. There was nobody around other than the on-site security guard. So I went and spoke with that security guard, and he told me on the day in question, he'd recorded everything in his logbook, and he read back to me that the ex-IT manager had turned up early in the morning, and he'd advised that a parcel would be being delivered that day. That parcel did arrive. The security guard signed for it, and then the security guard called the telephone number that the ex-IT manager had left for him. Well, that telephone number was the same telephone number that I've already spoken about, and the ex-IT manager came down and collected the parcel. So now I've got the fact that the ex-IT manager uses an O2 phone. I could see he uses it. I could see he used that phone to access the internet, but also I could see that he uses the O2 network, and he's dishonest in his character, and he's buying additional items that weren't part of his job. So the suspects have gone from the 3 down to the ex-IT manager. Next slide, the prime suspect. The ex-IT manager had left the company 2 months previous. He'd used the phrase, your friendly IT manager, which is the same phrase we'd seen in that initial email, the your friendly CEO. He had the ability to create a new admin account. He had an O2 phone, and he used the O2 cellular network in his personal and professional capacity. And he demonstrated his dishonest character. He collected that parcel, had made the connection between those illegitimate orders and him. I relayed my findings to the company, and they were that the IT manager still had access to the company network, which was actually in use and not detected. So the IT manager, after leaving the company, was still able to log in to that admin account, and that didn't raise any warnings. There was no flags. He was logging in the evening, in the early hours of the morning when this email was sent. Again, that activity didn't raise any flags, and he was logging in using the O2 cellular network. Again, no flags raised. The admin account existed for over a year without being identified. So this admin account had been created some 12 months prior, and in that time, it sat dormant. Nobody had used it. But there were no checks in place to determine how many admin accounts the company had, whether they were being used, who owned them. If they'd implemented such checks, this account would have been identified and it would have been removed, preventing this attack. And finally, a lack of policies and procedures prevented accountability. So in terms of policies, there was no policy in relation to spending expenses, how these were authorized, approved, and there was no policy in relation to asset management. So the IT manager was able to spend money without question. He was able to receive goods and, I suspect, either benefit from them himself or sell them on, and no one knew where these goods were. Even after the ex-IT manager left, nobody had any idea where any of the items that he bought were. I make reference to procedures as well. If the company had an effective offboarding procedure, then these final checks would have been put in place, looking at accounts that the ex-IT manager had and making sure they were disabled or deleted. So the outcome. This is where you're expecting me to say, I arrested the IT manager, he made a full and frank admission, and he was dealt with by the courts. Well, unfortunately, that wasn't the case. The company decided not to take any action, as they didn't want the matter to go to court and they didn't want it to become public. They didn't want partners, clients to see their poor cybersecurity controls and IT security. They made the decision not to take the matter any further. So on the surface, you can understand that decision. Reputationally, they don't want the wider public being aware of this situation. Now I understand that. However, what hasn't been taken into consideration is the company now have no idea whether the ex-IT manager still has access to their network. Are there additional accounts? We don't know. And in terms of the assets, the items that he'd ordered online, they were never recovered. If he was arrested and if I was given the opportunity to search his home address, I'd been able to recover items that we located there. we'd have been able to forensically look at his computers and determine what access he had and make sure that any access to the company network was removed. But for me, probably most importantly, and of relevance to everyone on this call, is that the ex-IT manager doesn't have a criminal record. According to his CV, he left his job, he decided to leave to move on to another company. So he has a completely clean record. No future employer will know about this incident. That means that the ex-IT manager could be working for one of us today, and we'd be none the wiser. So I mentioned at the start of this call that CyberSmart conducted a survey with Censuswide, where we spoke to 1,000 UK SME decision makers and leaders, and we asked them how the cost of living crisis is impacting them. Well, nearly half of them told us that they believe they're at greater risk for cyber attack since the cost of living crisis. 40% of them said that employee salaries have stayed the same or reduced, and over 1 in 5 are either worried about the survival of their business or expect to make a significant change in order to survive. So as expected, clearly the cost of living crisis is impacting upon SMEs. We decided to dig a little deeper, and we asked business leaders and decision makers, do you believe you're at greater risk of malicious or negligent insider threats? And 73% of them said yes. So we probed further, and we asked, do they believe employees will seek to harm their reputation? 17% said yes. Do they believe employees will steal sensitive data? 20% said yes. And did they believe employees be more likely to make harmful mistakes, such as clicking on phishing links? And 22% of them said yes. Now, clearly, this shows us there's a lack of trust between decision makers and business leaders towards the staff that are conducting the day-to-day work. So we decided to turn the tables a little bit and focus upon business leaders and ask them what they'd be willing to do in order to ensure the survival of their business. So we asked them if they'd be willing to engage in bribery, and 7% said yes. We asked them if they'd be willing to engage in cyber criminal activity, such as hitting a rival company with a cyber attack, and 10% said yes. And we asked them if they'd be willing to commit fraud, and 15% said yes. Now, let me remind you, these are business leaders. These are decision makers across UK SMEs. These are senior people in organisations. They're not drug dealers, whereby there is always a risk of going to prison if you commit crime. And they're answering these questions for the purposes of a survey. So they're not in a position where they need to conduct any of these criminal activities. But what is of significance about all of these criminal activities is each one of them would see you serve 10 years in prison if you were to commit the offence. That's 10 years in prison, and they're willing to do that at this point. Now, clearly, these business leaders, decision makers, need better strategy. And here are 3 simple strategies that they can use: employee training and awareness. We heard earlier they were worried about mistakes such as clicking on phishing emails. Well, employee training can address that. But also, when we looked at the case of the insider attack, understanding what an insider attack may look like, the awareness of what that may look like, and understanding how to raise those concerns, how to report it, who to report it to, will ensure that companies' cybersecurity posture is stronger. Access controls and monitoring. Again, looking back at the investigation I conducted, we saw the ex-IT manager was able to still access the company network, and no flags were raised. If we put sufficient controls in place, we can raise flags, identify potential attacks. And this includes making sure that accounts such as admin accounts are reviewed on at least a quarterly basis to make sure that they're being used appropriately and they're still needed by the people that control them. And then finally, implementing clear policies and procedures. As we touched on before, where we have policies and procedures in place, people understand what the norms are. They understand what they're allowed to do. They understand what they should be doing. And procedures make sure that people know how to act when certain situations occur, as well as making sure things like onboarding and offboarding are addressed. So some final stats from me from the survey we conducted. 50% of SME leaders have increased investment in cybersecurity since the cost of living crisis. However, we found that 13% of companies have no policies at all. That's zero, not one policy. But 76% of companies that recognise former employees as a threat have no clear offboarding policies or procedures. So let me summarise what this page is telling me. SMEs have money to invest in cybersecurity. They understand this is an issue that needs investment. But on the other side, they're not sure what to do with this money, how to best spend it. And this is where the opportunity exists. And this is why something like Cyber Essentials is so important. It allows us to get the basics in place to protect companies and ensure that the money spent is spent wisely. And this is where I hand over to Stephen.
Thank you very much, Adam. That was a great insight into an example of a cyber threat that businesses are facing. And yeah, really highlights the need for a clear and concise path to investment in cybersecurity for small businesses and large organisations. So with that, I'd like to spend the next few minutes just introducing more clearly Cyber Essentials and also how Cyber Essentials can benefit businesses. And not only to obtain Cyber Essentials in the first instance, but also maintain that. And as Adam said, ensure a good cyber security posture within an organisation. As I said, if we take cybercrime in total, from a financial sense, it would be classed as the third largest country or third largest economy after the US and China at $6 trillion in 2021. That's predicted to grow to $10 trillion by 2025. So it's a big problem already and a growing problem. And you only have to look at the news to see examples of where cybercrime is prevalent, where organisations are suffering cyber breaches. Now, the interesting thing to note here is, whilst these are household names, they're all large, newsworthy organisations, and there are many, many more organisations and smaller organisations that are suffering cyber breaches that don't make the headlines. Obviously, one of the lessons here is to stop reading the BBC, but this is just a number of news stories that were collated over the last few months alone. So you can see it's very much a prevalent problem within the business community. And indeed, the Federation of Small Business recently stated that their members are suffering close to 10,000 cyber attacks a day. So it's a massive problem that businesses need to address. And find ways and strategies to protect themselves. And the upshot of all of this, all of these breaches, is that the average cost of cybercrime for small and micro businesses in the UK is £4,200, not an insignificant sum of money. In addition to that, when you add large and medium organisations, the average cost rises to nearly £20,000. So a big impact on any business that unfortunately suffers a breach. And the long-term implications of suffering a breach don't make for pleasant reading. 60% of small companies that suffer a breach will close business within 6 months, and that rises to 80% within 12 months. But if the breach is what we consider catastrophic or a significant breach, where the organisation loses access to their data for more than 10 days, 93% of businesses will cease trading as a result of that breach. Now, there's a number of reasons why that's the case. Obviously, if you've lost access to your data, you can pretty much guarantee that anybody you owe money to will remind you that you owe them some money. But how many of the people that owe money to you would remind you that you haven't chased the invoice? And if you've not got access to your data, how do you know which invoices or which people you need to chase for those invoices? Yes, of course, some organisations will be honest and pay the bills, but many won't. And that causes a massive cash flow problem for small organisations, particularly, who don't have the resources to ride out that storm. And that's why a vast majority of small organisations that suffer that breach will unfortunately cease trading within 12 months. So is there a solution? Well, of course there is. Adam's already alluded to what that solution looks like, and that is Cyber Essentials. Cyber Essentials, for those that aren't aware, is a government scheme that was launched in 2014. It's designed to promote a solid foundation in cybersecurity, and it's the minimum businesses should be doing to protect themselves and to protect their supply chain. This isn't best practice. This is the absolute minimum organizations should be doing. It's a certification process. So Cyber Essentials isn't a solution in and of itself, but it's a certification that demonstrates and verifies that businesses have the solutions in place. So things like malware protection and the latest updates and the policies and procedures that Adam alluded to just now. And it's designed to help organizations to publicly show their commitment to cybersecurity whilst keeping it simple. And it's important, and we'll see shortly, it's important that organizations are able to demonstrate their commitment to cybersecurity and that they are doing the right things and putting at least the minimum in place. Cyber Essentials itself looks at 5 technical controls. For the technical amongst you will probably recognize things such as secure configuration, malware protection, user access control, boundaries of firewalls, etc. But all of those technical controls are designed to answer 5 relatively simple questions. Is your internet connection secure? Are the most secure settings switched on every company device? Do you have full control over who is accessing your data and services? Alluding back to the insider threat that Adam highlighted before. Do you have adequate protection against viruses and malware? And are devices and software updated to the latest versions? By having Cyber Essentials in place and by verifying that you are providing that level of minimum cyber security, you're answering these questions, and that's what Cyber Essentials is designed to do. Comes in 2 flavors, so Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. The main difference between the two is that Cyber Essentials is a self-assessment questionnaire that's completed by the organization and in association with EBS, which answers a number of questions around those technical controls designed to answer those 5 questions we saw before. Cyber Essentials Plus is the same questionnaire, but we as independent auditors will verify the answers. So in simple terms, for Cyber Essentials, you'll answer, we have ABC or XYZ in place to answer the question. For Cyber Essentials Plus, we'll say, well, you've said you've got ABC and XYZ in place. Let's have a look. Let's see it. And we will then verify that what you've said is correct and that is in place. And those are the 2 flavors of Cyber Essentials. Cyber Essentials can be achieved within 24 hours, and Cyber Essentials Plus generally takes about 2 weeks to do the audit and do the reports and achieve Cyber Essentials Plus. And from our perspective, and the way I'd like to look at this is Cyber Essentials is very similar to an MOT on your car. It's a point-in-time assessment. It's an expert will look at your vehicle or look at your IT infrastructure and say that as of today, you are compliant. You have a roadworthy car. But you get a piece of paper, or you certainly did in the old days, you get a piece of paper that lasts for 12 months. And a lot can change within 12 months. If we take the MOT, for example, you're driving down the road and you go through a pothole, and all of a sudden your car's no longer roadworthy, but you've still got that piece of paper that says you are. And it's the same with Cyber Essentials. A lot can happen in 12 minutes, let alone 12 months within the cyber world. And if you don't keep on top of the controls that are in place and ensure that that compliance is maintained, you can very quickly become uncompliant as far as Cyber Essentials is concerned. And that's having a knock-on effect, particularly within breaches where you are breached. And if you want to make a claim on cyber insurance, for example, the insurance company will ask, were you compliant at the point of breach? Not were you compliant 6 months ago when you passed the assessment, but were you compliant at the point of breach? And as with all insurance companies, if you're unable to demonstrate that you would maintain that compliance, then that gives them an opportunity to refuse to pay the claim, as they would do with an MOT. If they could demonstrate that the car wasn't roadworthy at the point of a road traffic accident, then it's unlikely they will pay out on the claim. So Cyber Essentials is very much about similar to an MOT on your car. Cyber Essentials is the MOT for your cyber security. And the way we approach that is that we've introduced a solution or a service called Cyber Assurance as a Service. Cyber Assurance as a Service gives you all of the tools that you need to not only obtain Cyber Essentials in the first place, but also maintain that posture and maintain that compliance for the period of the certification. Within Cyber Essentials, Cyber Assurance as a Service, you'll get access to the CyberSmart dashboard, which is a single pane of glass to manage all of your security within the organization. We provide a desktop user application called Active Protect. You have access to academy and policy templates. Again, going back to Adam's presentation on the insider threat, 95% of cyber breaches are the result of human error. And the only way that we can eat into that 95% is through behavior, managing behavior and cyber awareness. So through training and policy management, users are then given the tools and the information that they need to ensure that they are approaching the cyber world and acting in a way that is secure and safe and protects both the organization and themselves. And that's done through, as I say, academy training and policy templates. And because of the inherent increase in security that you achieve through Cyber Assurance as a Service, we've negotiated with the insurance companies to up the insurance that comes with Cyber Essentials to 100k. Standard insurance on Cyber Essentials is 25,000. We're providing free £100,000 cyber insurance. A couple of caveats: the company must be less than 20 million turnover and must be domiciled within the UK. But assuming you meet that criteria, you have Cyber Assurance as a Service in place and Cyber Essentials certification, you will qualify for the 100k insurance. And that's included. And obviously within the Cyber Assurance as a Service, you get Cyber Essentials certification. So closer look at what all of those points are. So the CyberSmart dashboard, CyberSmart dashboard even, is a single pane of glass that gives admin organization an overview of what's happening within the organization. So you can see at a glance, the administrator can see at a glance what's happening as far as the academy, who's undertaken the training, what's the average score, etc. You can look at the policies and manage the policies. You can also see whether there's any vulnerabilities on any user devices or any security breaches or security issues on those devices, and then remediate those problems. So it's giving you constant access and constant information about what's happening within your organization to ensure that you maintain that compliance and you maintain that good cyber posture that Cyber Essentials is promoting and ensuring that you have. In addition, you get Active Protect. So Active Protect works across both Apple and Windows desktop and laptop devices, as well as Android and iOS mobile devices and smartphones and tablets. Active Protect is an application. It's constantly monitoring the device. It runs in the background, checking the device every 15 minutes. And reporting back to the dashboard what's happening on that device. So again, the administrator has full access to what's going on within the infrastructure. It's also a very convenient delivery mechanism for the cyber awareness tools, such as the Academy and the smart policies. It puts the policies, it puts the Academy front and center, and means that the users have full access to that at any given point in time. And again, it's ensuring that you have that compliance for the 12 months. It's a non-invasive application, so it doesn't provide admin access to the device. So it's particularly suited to BYOD situations, or bring your own device, where people are using their own devices. Even if your company issues company laptops, for example, then the users might be using their smartphone to access their emails. That's a common thing at the moment. It's their own smartphone. They don't want any mobile device management software to control that device. Active Protect will still monitor that device and still provide the information that you need to ensure compliance. We have CyberSmart Academy, as mentioned before, so you can see there the app, and that delivers the training front and center to the users. There are 12 modules that cover a number of topics, including social media, identity theft, perfect passwords, mobile working, etc. So again, going back to the 95% of security breaches are the result of human error, this is one of the major ways in which we can impact that. We can start educating users to the best practice and how they should be behaving and performing whilst they're in the world. And this is delivered through the training, which can be monitored through the dashboard. so that you can see who has and hasn't completed the training, and you can see the average scores. So again, encouraging people to make sure that they maintain that level of education. In addition to that, policies is another good way to manage behaviour. So you have a number of policies such as IT access, password policies. My experience with policies, and this seems to be the experience with a lot of organisations, is on day one you're handing a whole ream of policies. You're asked to read and sign them. Invariably, you might read one or two. You'll sign them all. They'll go into your HR folder, and then you'll never see them again. With the policy management capabilities of Active Protect, those policies reside front and centre again within the user's desktop device. They're able to access those policies once they've been signed and review those policies. And from a policy management point of view, the organisation can issue new and updated policies at any time, and then the policies are available then for the users to review and sign those. But also, this policy management tool isn't limited to just Cyber Essentials. Any policy that the organisation wants to handle with the staff, you can do that through this tool. It's just upload the policy into the dashboard, and it will then be available for the users. And we've also introduced user groups so that some policies don't apply to all members of staff. So you can add it to a user group, and only the relevant people will have access to that policy. So again, as a policy management and delivery mechanism, it's a very powerful tool that comes as part of the Cyber Assurance as a Service. Talked about the 100k insurance. So as I mentioned there, that's the upgrade to the insurance, that because you're using Active Protect, because you have Cyber Essentials, you are more secure than organisations that just have Cyber Essentials, because you're maintaining that posture across the 12 months. And as a result, our insurance broker has agreed to uplift the insurance from 25k to 100k. And you can see there a breakdown of some of the summary of that cover that's included. And that comes as standard, providing a UK domiciled and less than 20 million turnover. And finally, obviously, Cyber Essentials. Where we do Cyber Essentials slightly differently is that we take the IASME question set. So IASME is the governing organisation for Cyber Essentials. We take that question set and we simplify that. We make it much easier for organisations to understand. We provide unlimited support through our live chat function, where our auditors and customer experience team are on hand to answer any questions regarding the questionnaire itself. Obviously, what we can't do is give you the answer to the question, but we can help you find where that information is and help you to understand the question, what the question is actually asking. As I mentioned, certification for Cyber Essentials is typically within 24 hours. Our feedback, once the questionnaire is submitted, will be within 24 hours, and that's whether that's a pass or a fail. If it's a fail, we'll tell you where it's failed, and it'll only be the questions that have failed that will then become visible to you to go back and answer those and supplement that information. We have a no-fail environment, so that means it's unlimited a number of attempts. So we don't recharge for resubmissions. Essentially, you can keep going until you pass. Cyber Essentials Plus is slightly different just because that's time limited. You only have 3 months following certification with Cyber Essentials to get Cyber Essentials Plus. Therefore, we can't give an unlimited no-fail environment on that, but we do have a limited no-fail environment on that. So with Cyber Essentials, why is it important? Why should organisations get Cyber Essentials and become certified? So aside from preventing around 99% of common known cyber attacks, Cyber Essentials is an excellent way to demonstrate to your supply chain that you've taken cybersecurity seriously. It's essential if you want to work with central local government, MOD, NHS. They stipulate on their tenders now that you have to have Cyber Essentials and increasingly Cyber Essentials Plus. We've also had anecdotal evidence where organisations have missed out on non-tender business because the organisation awarding the business had checked the public database and noticed that they didn't have Cyber Essentials and just simply overlooked them. So they didn't even get the chance to get Cyber Essentials. They were just overlooked because they didn't have that. And it's that NCSC Cyber Essentials public database which makes Cyber Essentials such a powerful tool. It simplifies that conversation when you're talking to your supply chain. Now, there's a number of examples where organizations have suffered a breach as a result of their supply chain being breached. And because of the implicit trust between customers and suppliers, they were then able to exploit that supply chain. So it's important to manage the supply chain. And Cyber Essentials simplifies that process. So if you to speak to your supply chain and ask the question, what are you doing to manage cybersecurity within your organization? Unless you're an IT expert, the answer will be complicated. They're using ABC applications, certain appliances, certain software. Unless you know what they are, it's of limited tangible value. And essentially, you can't verify whether it's true or not. You don't know whether the answer you've got back is the right answer. With Cyber Essentials, it's much simpler. You simply ask, are you Cyber Essentials certified? And it's a simple yes or no. If they say yes, then you know that they're doing the right, they're doing the basics correct, they're protecting themselves and you from 99% of common threats. They're taking the supply chain seriously, and more importantly, you can verify whether it's correct. Have they got Cyber Essentials? And you can check that on the public database. So apart from protecting yourself by putting the minimum standards in place required for a good cyber posture, you're also helping to protect your supply chain. And it's interesting. There's a story that springs to mind when I talk about cybersecurity. And it's not about being unhackable. Unhackable is unachievable. It doesn't exist anymore. There's a lot of organizations out there who have been hacked, who operate within the industry, and therefore you think they shouldn't have been hacked. LastPass, for example, 12 months ago, they're a password management tool. They got hacked. So it's not about being unhackable anymore, because I don't think that's achievable. But it's about making sure you're less attractive to the hackers. And it reminds me of a story of two backpackers who were hiking through the foothills of Canada, and they came across a bear. And now, obviously, as you can imagine, they panicked, they turned and they ran. And as they were running, they looked over their shoulder and realized that the bear was not only chasing them, but was catching up. So one of the backpackers reached into his backpack and he pulled out a pair of running shoes. And he started putting these running shoes on. And his friend turned to him and said, "What are you doing that for? You'll never outrun the bear." And he turned to him and said, "No, but I will outrun you." And that's essentially what Cyber Essentials is about. It's about making you less attractive to the hackers, or in this case, less attractive to the bear. So with EBS and with CyberSmart, we help you with the 3 pillars of IT security. We help you with the people, the cyber awareness training, the on-device support to make sure that the devices in the organization remain and maintain that. We help with the process, so the policy management, GDPR, etc., and data privacy. Those tools are built into Cyber Assurance as a Service. And we also help with the technology, so the real-time device scanning, making sure that secure configurations are in place, checking software vulnerabilities and any issues. And we check operating systems are supported, which is the number one benefit of cybersecurity, is making sure you're running the latest levels of software. And all of this is underpinned by the Cyber Essentials assessment. So thank you very much for your time. Hopefully we've answered most of your questions, but I think, Darren, we're open to answering any more questions.
Yep. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Adam. Do we have any questions from anyone out there? I can't see any in the chat either. Again, thanks, Stephen and Adam, for doing that today. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We will edit the video and get that out to you in the next few days. And we hope to see you all again soon.
Great. Thank you very much.